An ancient dragon gets his subscription to life canceled by the champion of the humans, and he can't understand why because as far as he can remember, he has never had beef with humans before. In fact, on many occasions, he has gone out of his way to help humanity, so he at least wants to know what led them to do this, but the humans refuse to give him an answer. The dragon assumes that the humans are killing him for selfish reasons, and to be honest, he has lived long enough as it is, so he isn't going to fight back against them. As the dragon crumbles to dust, he asks the Grim Reaper to take his soul to the underworld so he can finally rest, but the Grim Reaper said nah and stuffed his soul in a baby instead. The dragon opens his eyes to find his new parents and older brother looking down at him, and from what he understands, they decided to name him Dallin. Years go by, and despite the fact that he was once killed by humans, Dallin grows up to become a fine young man who cares deeply for the village he grew up in. In this world, agriculture is basically the only industry, so every morning, Dallin gets up and works in the fields to earn his daily bread. In this village, you're considered an adult at the age of 15, and since Dallin is now 16, he moved out of his parents' house and now lives on his own and takes care of himself. He's out fishing one day with his older brother when he is reminded that tomorrow is the day he plans to head to the swamp to investigate the recent occurrences there. Dallin says he remembers, and he still intends to do it because all the lizards in the swamp mysteriously disappeared a month ago, and someone needs to figure out why before something bad happens. That may be true, but his brother sees no reason why Dallin should have to go since that's usually the job of the garrison. And Dallin agrees that he normally wouldn't have to do it, but Captain Balin and the others are already busy enough guarding the village, so he doesn't want to bother them with something like this. In that case, Dallin's brother offers to go with him to make sure he's safe, but Dallin says Riz won't be necessary. A few moments later, Dallin catches the first fish of the day, so the brothers end the conversation, and by the time they are done fishing, Dallin has gotten quite a large haul. Takes his catch back to the village so he can show his friends Melita and Albert, and while they are impressed with the catch, they are concerned that Dallin was out fishing instead of preparing for his mission. But Dallin tells them they don't need to worry because he has been preparing little by little over the course of the past few days. Speaking of which, Dallin wants to thank Melita for her help because he would have had a hard time convincing the village chief to let him go. She says she was happy to help, and Dallin was the one who trained her in the first place, so she knows he is more than capable of coming back safely. Dallin asks if Melita and Albert have any plans for the day, so Melita tells him that she plans to take the children out for a brief training session later today, but she says he doesn't need to worry about them since he has enough to deal with already, so Dallin heads home so he can prepare the fish. While gutting and salting the fish, Dallin thinks about how the village can afford to hire enough guards to keep the entire place safe, so all the villagers are expected to chip in to ensure everyone's safety. Just then, Era comes up to Dallin's window and reminds him that he's supposed to have magic practice today. Dallin had completely forgotten about it, so he thanks Era for coming all the way out here to remind him, so he and Era go head over to Dallin's magic instructor's house, and once there, Dallin prepared to demonstrate his offensive magic. He chants a spell, and within a few moments, a powerful energy bolt is fired from his hand, completely destroying the target in front of him. The magic instructor praises Dallin for his excellent offense, and there's not much for her to teach him anymore regarding that, but as it stands, Dallin still sucks with medicine, so she's going to spend a lot of time teaching that. Later that evening, Dallin is in the town square when he meets a young girl with flowing white hair. The village chief introduces her to him and says she will be staying in the village for a while, but he also warns Dallin that she's a noble lady, so he should be on his best behavior around her. The girl tells Dallin that her name is Christina and extends her hand to shake his, and as they shook hands, Dallin could immediately tell that Christina was an incredibly skilled fighter. After she's gone, Dallin takes a little walk while reminiscing on all the things he has learnt since he became a human. As a dragon, he never had to worry about things like this, but as a human, there is a serious threat of freezing to death in the winter, as well as the risk of heat stroke during the summer, so he has to be careful of his environment. Dallin soon arrives at his parents' home and they greet him warmly, along with his younger brother Marco. Dallin brought a bunch of ingredients with him, so his mom takes it all and prepares a wonderful dinner for the family to enjoy. Dallin really enjoys it since he has missed his mom's cooking, and his father suggests that Dallin should find a wife who's good at cooking, so he can enjoy meals like this all the time. This isn't the first time Dallin has heard this, and he's not entirely opposed to the idea of getting married, but he's going to stick with the single life a little while longer. Marco asks him if he's still going to investigate that swamp tomorrow, and Dallin doesn't think it's a big deal. But his mother is really worried because not only is the swamp really far from here, but the road is also known to be dangerous. However, Dallin assures her that he won't be taking any risks, so there's no reason to be so worried about him. His dad tells him that he is an adult, so he is free to make any decision he chooses, but all he asks is that Dallin makes sure he comes back safely to them. The next day, as Dallin is about to set off on his journey, the entire village comes out to see him off. He thinks this is a little excessive for a send-off, but Balin says this is the least he can do for Dallin when he is taking on a job for him. In all honesty, Balin still feels like he should be the one going instead, but Melita reminds him that if he's gone and the village gets attacked by a monster, then there would be no one here to stop it. Everyone wants to do something to help Dallin out, so the resident nun Letitia goes up to him and offers a small blessing for his protection, and Gary gives him a bento box so he doesn't go hungry out there. They then wish him luck on his trip, and Dallin sets out to investigate the swamp. But lizards that used to live in the swamp would periodically interact with Dallin's village, but one day they suddenly disappeared. Dallin couldn't just ignore such a strange occurrence, so he volunteered to investigate so he can figure out what happened. But he was a bit anxious as to what he might find out here. Once Dallin arrives at the swamp, he uses his hand to feel the surrounding area, and he immediately figures out why the lizards all had to leave. The earth elemental's power has been growing too strong lately, and the water elemental's power has been weakening. Just then, Dallin hears some rustling in the bushes, and he is put on edge because, with the current condition of the swamp, only a powerful monster could survive here. However, as he readies his blade, he is shocked to find a Lamia slithering behind him. Lamias aren't usually seen around here, but as strange as it may be for her to be here, she's definitely a smash. The Lamia asks Dallin if he's alone, and Dallin confirms that he came by himself, which relieves the Lamia, because what she's about to do would be embarrassing if there were other people here. She tries to remember what her mother taught her to do, and from what she remembers, she's supposed to use a charm spell and then do a bunch of movements, but she doesn't remember how to do it right. Dallin is more confused than he is charmed, but the Lamia carries on to tell him that she didn't come here for a fight. But all of a sudden, a giant mud monster shows up above her, and that thing doesn't look like the calm and reasonable type. The monster attacks the Lamia, but Dallin steps in just in time and cuts its arm off before dragging the Lamia into cover. They have to stay quiet and hidden until the monster gives up on looking for them, but once it's finally gone, the Lamia asks Dallin what that thing was. He explains that it's a mad earth elemental, and it's probably why all the lizard people who lived here before had to leave. There was an earthquake recently, which may have caused the earth elemental to become like this, and unfortunately, Dallin doesn't think things are going to go back to normal anytime soon. The Lamia's name is Selena, and Dallin has heard that all Lamias are capable of using magic, so he asks if she can too. Selena confirms that she is able to use magic, so Dallin suggests that they should fight together to take it down. Selena is a little flustered by Dallin's suggestion because Lamias are earth monsters, so most of her spells won't be effective against the earth elemental. However, she does have one spell which should be able to damage it, so Dallin comes up with a plan and says he will attack the elemental from the front, so he will need Selena to back him up while he does. They get into position, and Selena is a little nervous to be working together with a human that she just met, but she doesn't have much of a choice, so when Dallin gives the signal, they both run out, and while Dallin holds off the elemental, Selena casts her spell and creates a giant snake which binds the elemental in place. While the elemental is distracted, Dallin charges forward again, and even though Selena couldn't hold it in place for long, she bought more than enough time for Dallin to get within striking range. So he runs up the elemental's body, and by infusing his sword with dragonic energy, he is able to slice the elemental in half, totally defeating it. However, as a result, all that elemental mud turns back into regular mud, and it goes all over the place, covering Selena from head to tail. Dallin rushes over to check if Selena is alright, and she doesn't seem to be hurt, so he just needs to take care of her clothes and get her cleaned up. Later that night, Dallin sets up camp and is preparing dinner for himself and Selena. Selena is surprised that Dallin isn't even slightly scared of her, even though she's a Lamia, so Dallin explains that he has met Lamias before, but even so, Selena is different from those he has met before. Most Lamias are wary of humans and are much more aggressive, but now that he thinks about it, there aren't any Lamia villages nearby, so he's wondering what Selena is doing out here. Selena explains that it is a part of her people's tradition that when you turn 17, you need to leave home and go find yourself a husband, which is why she's away from her village. The Lamia race is cursed, so they only give birth to girls, and on the rare occasion that they do give birth to a boy, it's always a boy of their husband's race. The curse also gives them their snake-like bodies and makes their bodily fluids poisonous, and as you would expect, finding a partner is pretty difficult when there's a good chance they die from touching you. Because of that, she needs to make sure her husband has a body that's strong enough to resist poison, but there aren't many people like that out there. Celaena's mother got lucky and managed to meet the perfect human while on a journey, and both of Celaena's parents got along great. All Dolan says to this is that he's glad Celaena is happy, but that makes her think he's treating her like a child. However, Dolan tells her that he just thinks she's cute when she talks, which gets her all flustered. He pours her a bowl of his soup, and while it may not be as good as the way his mom makes it, he is still pretty confident that Celaena will like it. She takes a sip and she absolutely loves the soup's flavor, so much so that she starts rambling about how great it is. But once she realizes what she's doing, she stops herself and apologizes for getting so excited. Dolan says he's glad she likes it and recalls how he and his family would often sit around a fire like this on cold winter nights and enjoy this soup. Celaena can tell that Dolan genuinely loves his family more than anything, and Dolan can hardly believe he once spent an eternity as a dragon all alone in a cave instead. The next morning, the two's time together has come to an end, so Dolan bids Celaena farewell and wishes her luck in finding a good husband, but before he leaves, he wants to give her a present, and he recalls hearing that Lamia is like life energy, so he pours some of his life energy into Celaena, but it makes her faint almost instantly. Dolan apologizes for doing that all of a sudden as he now realizes that his dragon life force must be a little too strong for Celaena to handle. Once she has recovered, Dolan says he's going to start heading back to his village, and he invites Celaena to come visit him sometime before beginning his journey home. Celaena eventually runs into two male travelers, and this is perfect since she is looking for a husband, but before she could introduce herself, they see her lower half and freak out. Back in Dolan's village, Irie is currently learning how to make magical medicine with Dolan, and the Maguru warns them that mistakes with the measurements can often be life-threatening, so they need to be very careful. Unfortunately, Dolan isn't very good at this, so his magical herb ends up turning into a ball of smoke. He just can't seem to get the hang of complex procedures like this, but Irie tells him not to be discouraged because he's good at a lot of other things, plus he's really handsome, and Dolan appreciates the compliment, but he admits that he isn't skilled when it comes to following complicated instructions. Maguru says Irie's magical herb turned out perfectly, so Irie is done for the day and can go outside if she wants. Irie would have preferred to stay inside with Dolan, but she decides to go help her mom out since she has some free time. Dolan doesn't know what to do about his lack of dexterity because back when he was a dragon, medicine wasn't really necessary, so he never had to learn how to make it. Maguru doesn't know about his past life, but even if he isn't good at making magical medicine, he is still talented enough that she is sure he will eventually get the hang of it, so for now she wants to teach him how to turn his failed magic herb into a poison antidote. A little while later, Dolan is invited to have lunch with the rest of Irie's family, and though he didn't want to intrude, they insisted that he eat with them, so they begin the meal by praying to the goddess of nature Merail, and it turns out that Dolan used to friends with Merail in his past life, although he hasn't seen her for a long time now. After lunch, Dolan is in a rush to leave because he is late for his next training session, and along the way he runs into Miu, and she remarks that he seems to be in quite a hurry. Dolan explains that he's late for practice, and Miu is disappointed since she was hoping to give him some fresh milk, but it looks like he doesn't have the time. In that short moment of indecision, Miu already squeezed him a fresh mug of milk, and it's too good to pass up, so Dolan graciously drinks it and thanks her before running off to the training session. A little while later, Dolan arrives on the hill where Albert is instructing a couple of the kids on how to use a spear, and he apologizes for being late, but Albert says it is fine since he knows Dolan had magic practice with Maguru. The kids are all excited to show Dolan the new skills they have learned, but Dolan says they can show him after they take a break since they've been working hard for a long time now. Just then, Dolan senses the presence of a monster in the woods nearby, but he doesn't want to scare the kids, so he ignores it for the time being and goes on with practice. Later that night, Dolan heads out into the forest to investigate the monster presence he felt earlier, and oddly enough, he seems to recognize it, but the only person he knows who would match the description is Celaena, and there's no way she would be around here. He heads deeper into the forest, and to his surprise, he sees Celaena camping out in the forest. Celaena is just as surprised to see him, but she accidentally stumbles back and knocks over the hot water, so Dolan rushes in to save her from getting hurt. Celaena is glad he saved her, but she's still naked, so she asks Dolan not to look. However, Dolan's eyes are wide open and he begins evaluating every inch of Celaena's body, coming to the conclusion that she's a solid 9 out of 10 waifu. Celaena once again begs Dolan to stop looking, and she can't believe he feels no shame in a situation like this, but Dolan sees nothing to be ashamed about. Dolan ends up getting slapped in the face by Selena. and he apologizes for not taking her feelings into consideration, but Celaena just wants to forget what happened, so she says it's fine. Now that that's over, Dallin asks what Celaena is doing here since she told him she was heading south to search for a husband. And while that was initially the plan, every guy she tried to meet would run away from her in fear, so she came looking for Dolan, since he's the only person she has met who wasn't scared of her. Dolan was actually hoping to see Celaena again, and he says he is willing to do anything to help her find a husband, but then he thinks about it for a second and asks Celaena if she would be fine with living here with him for a while. Celaena is in disbelief and says she couldn't possibly do something like that because she thinks she would scare the people in the village, but Dallin assures her that it won't be a problem since there are already a bunch of demi-humans living in the village and Miyu, for example, is loved by everyone. The villagers may be wary of Celaena at first since she's a newcomer, but he's sure they will eventually warm up to her since she has a kind and gentle personality. And Dallin would personally enjoy having her around, although the way he says it makes it seem like he is courting Celaena. Celaena loves the idea of living with Dallin in a human village, but there's also a different reason she came looking for him. She was hoping he would share some of his life energy with her again because it was the most delicious life energy she had ever received, and Dallin is more than happy to give her some whenever she wants. He extends his hand to share some of his energy with her, and she seems to like it a lot, so he tells her she can have even more when they start living together, but for now, he has a plan to introduce her to the villagers. A few days later, the town guards are investigating some strange occurrences because this is the third day in a row that someone left a bunch of hunted food out for them. The tracks on the ground lead them to the conclusion that it must have been some kind of snake monster that did this, and the only thing that fits the description would be a lamia. A meeting is held to discuss their plan of action moving forward because they don't know for sure if this monster is a threat to them or not. After all, it's been leaving offerings for them, and it hasn't caused any harm yet, so there's no reason to be hostile towards it. But even with that being the case, Balin still says they should go out into the forest and kill it. The other villagers tell them to calm down because even if they agree to kill it, lamias are pretty strong, so they would need to call for reinforcement from the capital. Dallin overhears their conversation while he's working in the fields, and he hadn't realized how much people fear lamias, but he is sure they'd change their opinion if they actually got to know Celaena. Just then, Magruh speaks up and tells Balin that he's overreacting because she doesn't think the monster will cause them any harm, however, just to be sure. She asks Irie to bring her fortune-telling basket, and upon inspection of today's fortune, the lamia is a good sign for the village. Dallin hears this and is excited, so later that day, he runs into the forest to tell Celaena that they can move forward with the next phase of the plan. The villagers no longer want to kill her, and the hunt offerings helped make public opinion positive, so there's only one more thing they need to do to get them to accept her. The next day, Balin organizes a meeting with the soldiers in town, and he tells them that they need to stay on guard because they are the only people keeping the village safe from danger, so he wants to hold an emergency training session just so everyone is in perfect condition. For this meeting, Dallin was called out, along with all the heavy hitters of the garrison, and this is exactly what Dallin was hoping would happen so he can complete his plan. Galen and Melita, as well as the priestess Letitia, are all present, and Letitia holds a lot of value in the village because she is able to perform healing miracles. But more than that, she is considered the messenger of the goddess Mirael, so if she arbitrarily declares Celaena is evil, there will be no way she gets accepted into the village. Everything now hinges on how well Celaena's acting skills are, so she needs to pretend to rescue Dallin from danger to get everyone to like her. Dallin plans to intentionally run into some monsters to give her the opportunity, so she is patiently waiting in the bushes for Dallin's signal. Just then, the soldier comes running out of the woods and begins yelling that the monster is here, but he isn't talking about Celaena, he's talking about an armored bear. Balin can't believe there's an armored bear this close to the edge of the forest, but he orders his men not to attack it because they will be killed in one shot if they do. He orders everyone to run away, but his son trips over his own feet and falls to the ground, so he's about to get slashed by the bear. Dallin rushes in to save him, but unless he uses his dragon powers, there's no way the boy will make it out of this alive. At the last second, just as Dallin is jumping in front of the boy, Celaena jumps on top of the two of them and takes the hit instead. She's got enough health that it didn't kill her, but she's got a pretty nasty wound on her back, so she uses her cursed eyes to order the bear to return to the forest. Balin and the others are even more shocked than before, but while Celaena is checking up on the boy, Dallin chooses to ignore everything she just did and orders both Dallin and the boy to get away from Celaena so he can kill her. Dallin can tell that the boy is scared, so he tells him to get up and run back to his father, but Dallin refuses to leave Celaena's side until he knows she will be treated properly. Melida tells Balin that it did look like the Lamia went out of its way to save them, but Balin still insists that it is a dangerous monster, so he isn't going to let her get away. Dylan still refuses to leave her side, so Balin asks Celaena if she was the one who was leaving offerings in front of their village, but while she tries to confirm it, Celaena accidentally bites her tongue. The way she gets embarrassed is really cute, but Balin maintains his composure and asks why she would do that and why she decided to save 2 humans out of nowhere. Celaena properly introduces herself and then lowers her head to ask that she be allowed to live in this village. She began a journey in accordance with her people's tradition, but traveling alone has been far lonelier than she ever could have imagined, so she wanted to live with other people. And as for why she chose to save the boy, she feels like his family would be greatly saddened if he was killed, so she didn't want to let that happen. The people no longer think Celaena is scary, but Dylan still isn't sure they should trust her, so he looks to Letitia to see what she thinks, and to his surprise, Letitia is currently receiving a message from the goddess Mirelle. She tells everyone that Mirelle told her that Celaena is not an evil monster, so they should live with her in harmony. So she goes over to Celaena and tells her she's welcome to stay in the village. Celaena is glad to hear that, but the severity of her wounds finally gets to her, so she faints from the blood loss and she needs immediate medical attention. A little while later, Celaena's wounds have been treated, and she has officially been welcomed as a member of the village. They'd even made a house for Celaena to live in, and she is really excited, so she heads in to check it out. On the bed, she finds a little stuffed mushroom, and she absolutely loves it, so she thanks everyone one more time for their kindness. The mushroom cushion was Balin's idea, and it's his way of apologizing for being so aggressive towards her when she saved his son's life, and he is still deeply sorry for that. There's a lot they still don't know about Lamias, but they say they will do everything they can to accommodate and make Celaena's stay here as pleasant as possible. And now that everyone has truly accepted her, Dalin extends his hand to greet Celaena as an official member of the Varen village. Now that Celaena has been accepted into the village, Dalin thinks things will go well from here on out, but he owes Goddess Mirelle a huge favor for helping him out back there. That night, Dalin wants to go talk to Mirelle, so when he goes to sleep, he creates an astral projection of himself and flies up to the heavens. Soon after, he arrives in Mirelle's kingdom, and once he finally finds her, Mirelle is overjoyed to reunite with her old dragon friend. It has been a long time since they last spoke to one another, but Dalin wants to express his gratitude to her for telling Letitia that Celaena is a good person. There's no telling what could have happened if she hadn't done that, but still, Dalin is surprised she chose to help him out even though he didn't ask her directly. He didn't think she would be able to recognize him since he was reborn as a human, but Mirelle felt the familiar presence of his soul among her followers, and from that, she immediately knew it was him. Still, she was surprised to see how much he enjoyed living now, considering he used to hate his life as an ancient dragon, and Dalin doesn't deny it because he didn't even try to stop the hero from killing him in his past life. But since he became a human, he realized the joy that could be had in living every day to its fullest. Mirelle can tell that there is joy in Dalin's heart now, and she is happy for him, so she wishes him the best in his new life. The next morning, Dalin wakes up to the sound of Celaena barging into his room. She seems really excited to see him, and he's glad to see her as well, but he wishes she would not before entering like that. Celaena apologizes, so Dalin tells her it's fine and asks why she's here so early in the morning. Celaena can't believe he forgot, so she reminds him that he promised to plant potatoes with Christina today, and she's already waiting outside for him. Meanwhile, at the academy in the capital, the headmistress has brought the mail for the day, and today seems to be special because there's a letter in there from Christina. Christina is the pride and joy of the academy, so the headmistress says she'll read the letter right away and snaps her fingers to open it with magic. The letter details everything Christina has learned since arriving in the village of Varen. Because the village is so remote, it faces many safety challenges, so all the villagers are required to take part in combat practice. Not long ago, she faced the vice captain of the defense unit in a mock battle, and all the spectators were amazed with Christina's skill. Since it's rare for someone to give the vice captain this much trouble, but they are sure she can make a comeback since she hasn't gotten serious yet. The vice captain doesn't appreciate all the unnecessary comments, but Christina tells her that the guy in the crowd is right because she really hasn't been taking this fight seriously. Melita admits that she has been holding back, but if it's what Christina wants, and she's willing to go all out against her. Christina says she would love that, so Melita takes out his second blade and begins attacking with a lot more aggression. However, despite all this, in the next few seconds, Melita gets disarmed and falls to the ground in defeat. That was an undeniable loss for Melita, and she's a good sport about it, so she commends Christina on her astounding sword skill. Balin then comes over to congratulate Christina on her victory, and to celebrate, they invite her to have lunch with them. This was the first time Christina got to experience how welcoming the people of Varen can be. They treated her very well, but while she was eating, she couldn't help but notice that everyone was staring at her. So the women apologize and say they just thought she was really pretty. Balin finds it hilarious and asks Christina if she would like to go drinking with him tonight, and Christina is caught off guard by the sudden invitation. But before she could respond, Albert told her she should probably decline because when Balin starts drinking, he won't stop until he passes out. Christina is about to say she doesn't mind, but before she does, Balin apologizes for making such a rude offer because a noble lady like herself probably wouldn't want to go drinking. He says he will just have to make do with these guys instead since she won't be going, but Christina just remains silent. A little while later, she's back in her room, but as she sees Balin and the other guys off to have a night of fun, she feels left out, so she decides to get her mind off it by training. While she's out, Dallin and Celaena run into her, and Celaena is really happy to see Christina. She asks why Christina is training so late at night, but Christina doesn't give an answer, so Celaena can tell that something is bothering her. To cheer her up, Celaena asks Christina if she would like to come over and hang out for a bit, to which Christina agrees. Celaena later brings her to her house, and she's excited to show it off, especially the bed she was given because it's really comfortable. She invites Christina to try out the bed as well because she's sure she will love it, but Dallin reminds Celaena that the bed was made to suit the needs of a Lamia, so it may not be the best for a human. Celaena apologizes for being inconsiderate, but even though she's not sure what the bed feels like, Christina still wants to give it a try, and to her surprise, it's actually quite comfortable. Celaena is happy to hear that and explains that it was Balin's idea to make the bed as a welcome gift. She was really anxious when she first moved in because she didn't know if the villagers would really accept her, but they've all been extremely kind, and the more she learns about them, the more she loves it here. The next day, Balin is having another drinking party and declares that no one can drink more of his wife's milk than he can. Celaena and Christina soon join the party as well, and Christina says she would love to try some of Miu's famous milk, so Miu gladly prepares a fresh squeezed mug for her milk, and Christina drinks it all in one gulp. And you can really tell she enjoyed it because she has the milk mustache. Balin is impressed by how quickly she drank the milk, so he asks her if she's a fellow milk enjoyer like him. Christina admits that she can drink more milk than the average person, so Balin issues a drinking challenge to her. And this time she happily accepts, but she says no one should blame her if she empties the village's milk supply in the process. And Miu, the village milk supply, is more than happy to meet the demand. The first mug of milk is poured, and both Christina and Balin have no trouble knocking it back, but as the mugs keep coming, Balin starts slowing down. He tries to keep drinking to hold onto his milk championship, but it ends up being too much for him. So he passes out on the table, and Christina is declared the new milk champion. Everyone begins celebrating, and Christina seems to be enjoying all the attention she's getting. As Headmistress Olivia finishes reading the letter, she is pleased to learn that Christina is having so much fun over there, but she doesn't have time to dwell on it for long because she has another visitor. A little while later, a party is held among the noble people of Galoa, and the hottest topic for discussion is the fact that the pride of the academy, Christina, somehow made friends with a Lamia, and people have mixed opinions on whether they think it's cool or disgusting. Olivia has no idea how the news spread so quickly, and it has gone so far that Olivia is soon approached by a government official who says she wants to know more about this Lamia that Christina befriended. Olivia sees no reason why the government should be interested in a random Lamia. The woman says she believes a Lamia is far too dangerous to live with humans, and there have been a lot of recent kidnappings here, so who's to say if this Lamia isn't responsible? Olivia admits that the kidnapping incidents are pretty serious, but the Lamia has nothing to do with that, and from what Christina said, the Lamia is kind and gentle, so there shouldn't be any problems if they just let it be. However, the government official insists on sticking her nose in other people's business, so she asks whose jurisdiction the Varen village falls under, and the man in charge says he will send an envoy to determine if Celaena is a threat or not. Meanwhile, Celaena is out helping Dallin and Christina plant some potatoes, and once she is done, she excitedly calls over to Dallin to show him her work, and he can tell that she did her best, but he suggests that she should space out the potato more evenly so they grow better. As for Christina, she's basically just punching the potatoes into the ground. Just then, one of the guards runs up to them and says both Dallin and Celaena are being summoned to the village gates, and it's a serious matter, so they need to hurry. They all stop what they are doing and run up to the front gate to see what's going on, and as soon as they get there, Christina is dragged aside and both Dallin and Celaena are surrounded. Gauda introduces himself as the Commissioner of the Northern Frontier, and he is here because it has come to his attention that someone brought a Lamia onto this land. Dallin doesn't deny it, but Gauda is reminded that the goddess Mirael already gave her blessing for Celaena to live here. Gauda assures everyone that it's not that he doesn't believe the words of Mirael, but is his duty to ensure the safety of this land, so he had to come to investigate it himself. Dallin is a little relieved that Gauda isn't here to kill Celaena outright, but even so, he has no idea what they are after. Gowda explains that he wants to take Celaena with him to the government general where it will be decided if she is truly safe to be around or not. This situation is not up for discussion, so Celaena has no right to refuse, but since Dallin doesn't want to let her go by herself, he asks for permission to accompany her on the journey since he is the one who brought her here. Gowda sees no reason to object, so he allows it, and later that day, both Dallin and Celaena are carted off to meet the government general. As they leave, Kristina thinks she should go talk to Headmistress Olivia about this to see if there's anything she can do to ensure Celaena's safety, so she decides to run back to the academy and casts a wind spell to make herself go faster. Meanwhile, Dallin and Celaena are sitting in the back of a carriage on the way to the government general, and Dallin apologizes to her for being forced to sit through such a long journey like this. Celaena says it's fine, but she is worried that Dallin is cold, so she offers to share her blanket with him. Dallin appreciates the gesture, and while the two of them are under the blanket, Dallin pulls her close to comfort her. He knows she must be anxious with everything that's going on, so he assures her that everything will be alright. At the same time, Kristina has just made it back to the academy, so she barges into Olivia's office and demands to discuss what happened with the Gowda's visit to the Varen village. Olivia says she will be happy to discuss this, but first, she wants Kristina to sit down for a cup of tea. Once Kristina has calmed down, Olivia explains that Celaena isn't going to be killed. The fact that she was given Myral's blessing means no one would dare do such a thing, and in fact, Gowda didn't want to bother going after her because he didn't think there was a problem. However, Karen, the purple-haired Karen, refused to mind her own business and forced him to do it. She is high up on the government ladder, and she believes Celaena is a threat, so Gowda can't refuse her demands. Karen even went as far as suggesting that Celaena was involved with the recent kidnappings in the capital, and that wouldn't be possible with Celaena living all the way out in Varen, but if Celaena were to be in the capital for some reason, Karen could likely blame her after all. Dallin and Celaena are led to the government general mage's mansion, and Karen has the fakest smile imaginable on her face as she is introduced to Celaena, but she wasn't expecting any other visitors, so she asks who Dallin is. Dallin explains that he is a friend of Celaena's and he took it upon himself to accompany her here. Karen says she doesn't mind the extra company, but the two of them must be hungry after such a long journey, so she invites them to come inside for some dinner. A wonderful feast has been prepared for the guests, and she tells them they can have whatever they like since this is her way of making it up to them for forcing them to come all the way out here. Dallin appreciates the gesture, but it was inevitable that Celaena would have to come to Galoa at some point if she intended to continue living in Varen. Celaena is relieved that Karen is being so nice to her because the way soldiers carted her off made her feel like she was going to be killed. Karen doesn't deny that killing Celaena was an option at the time because she had some concerns that Celaena might be using her cursed eyes to control the villagers. However, now that she's met Celaena in person, she would never do something like have her eliminated. Meanwhile, Gowda has returned to the academy, and when he enters Olivia's office, he tells her that he has something he wishes to discuss. Back at Karen's mansion, once Dallin and Celaena are done eating, Karen asks both of them if they enjoy their food, and they say it was delicious, but that's when Karen's true intentions begin to show. Celaena is definitely the nicest and most beautiful lamia that Karen has ever seen, not to mention that curvy tail of hers, which is why Karen drugged the food and intends to try out every inch of Celaena's body in more ways than one. At the academy, Gowda fills Kristina in on the details of what's going on, and it involves the reports of women going missing in this region. Kristina is adamant that Celaena had nothing to do with that, but Gowda is already aware of that. The one who is really behind it is a certain mage who has been alive for over 300 years now. This mage has survived so long by kidnapping young women and taking over their bodies, and now she has taken an interest in the body of a certain lamia. Kristina realizes that the mage in question is Karen, and that means Celaena must be in trouble, so she says they have to hurry over there and stop Karen before she goes through with it. And while Olivia doesn't like the idea of Kristina getting involved, it could use all the help then can get, so she agrees to bring her along to assist. Back at Karen's castle, she has laid Celaena out on a table, and she is so excited to begin dissecting her for her sick, twisted reasons. However, before she could begin, Dallin interrupts and tells her to stop. Karen is confused because that drug should have kept Dallin knocked out for at least a whole day, and she's sure she didn't mess up the drug dosage, yet Dallin is as active as ever and casually rips off his restraints. He notices that the magic circles on the floor all reek of blood, so Karen must have been doing this for a while now, and he wants to know how many people she has killed. Karen doesn't answer his question because she is still wondering how he is unaffected by her drug, so she throws her scalpel at him and accuses Dallin of not being human. Dallin dodges and reiterates his question, so Karen tells him she doesn't know because she stopped keeping count of all the people she killed after she passed 100. Dallin is disgusted by how proud she is of that statement, so he asks her if there was even a reason to kill that many people, and Karen believes she had a very good reason because she wanted to accessorize. Everyone possesses something beautiful, so she just decided to take the beautiful things from all the other people and put them in herself. The magic for it is technically forbidden, and Karen had to make a few deals with the devil for it, but it was all worth it for such a fabulous body. Her arms are from an Arakan, her legs are from a thick beastskin, and her flawless skin is from an elf. And she's been happy with the way she looks for a while, but now that she has seen Selena's beautiful body, she thinks it's time to switch things up a bit. Dallin thinks Karen is messed up in the head, and he's not wrong because Karen has no intention of apologizing or changing her ways, so redemption is out of the question. Selena heard the whole conversation, and she's equally appalled by Karen's actions. Karen must have tricked a lot of people with her fake kindness when they came to her for help, and she calls her out for doing such a terrible thing, but Karen still feels no remorse whatsoever because the pursuit of beauty supersedes all in her eyes. Selena says Goda was right about Karen, and this surprises Karen because she thought she had hidden her actions from Goda really well, but it turns out that she had underestimated him because before Dallin and Selena arrived here, Goda informed them of Karen's misdeeds. If they could prove it, it would certainly be enough to override her power as government general and take her down, but they needed concrete evidence, which is why Dallin and Selena tricked her into monologuing so they could record the evidence needed. And now that there's no doubt that Karen is evil, Dallin calls in Gadu and the others since they've been waiting outside for a while now. Right on cue, Goda, Olivia, Christina, and some guards bust into the room, and Goda orders his men to capture Karen immediately. Karen planned to frame Selena for all the missing girls that were used in her beauty experiments, and then she would claim that she had to kill Selena for the crime so she would be free to use Selena's body as she wished. Christina and Christina can't believe Karen would go so far just for the sake of beauty, but Karen says they would never understand because they don't know what it's like to lack beauty. Ever since she was a child, Karen had been fascinated by beautiful things, and she wanted to be beautiful just like the things around her, but one quick look in the mirror shattered her dreams because she was so ugly that the animators couldn't bring themselves to draw her face. After coming to this realization, she took the next logical step and decided to steal a face off the first pretty woman that walked by. Piece by piece, Karen stole the body parts of all the beautiful women of the land, and her unspeakable cruelty was so impressive that she received funding from a demon to expand her operation and continue her unethical experiments. She became addicted to improving her body, and she's sure that someday she will achieve the pinnacle of beauty if she continues her research, so she isn't letting anything get in her way. She reveals her true form, and not that I agree with her, but I can see why she was so desperate to change her appearance. She attempts to grab Selena, but Dallin reacts quickly and carries her to safety. He has never seen something like this before, but it looks like all the fusions Karen made, coupled with the fact that she made a deal with the devil, led her to become this mismatched monstrosity. In the face of such horror, the guards lose their nerves, so they become liabilities, and Selena is forced to use her cursed eyes to stop Karen before she can hurt them. Selena is able to keep her frozen for a while, but eventually Karen breaks free and attempts to grab Selena once more. However, this time, Christina steps in and chops off a bunch of Karen's fingers. There are very few things that Christina deems unforgivable, and hurting her friends is at the top of the list, so she's fully prepared to kill Karen. She charges forward and begins slashing away at Karen's body, but before she can do any fatal damage, Karen becomes defensive and casts powerful dark magic to keep Christina from coming any closer. Karen's power as a mage is truly terrifying, and there's not much Olivia can do to help in this situation because she can't summon spirits to help while they are underground. However, Dallin tells her that there's no need to get involved because he can handle things from here. While they had been keeping Karen busy, he had been drawing some magic circles on the ground, and now that he's done, he is ready to take Karen out, so Christina and Selena back off and let him work. Before he starts though, he wants to know if Karen actually feels happy after all the lives she has taken to attain her beauty, but Karen doesn't believe happiness is necessary as long as she achieves true beauty. Unfortunately, beauty will always be out of reach for her as long as her soul remains tainted by her wicked desires. There is no saving her, so Dallin casts a celestial javelin spell and surrounds Karen to make sure she can't escape as she is torn to shreds. After that was done, a few days pass and both Dallin and Selena were required to wait in the mansion until Goda could deal with all the aftermath, so Dallin passes the time by helping Selena study the human language. She really doesn't like having to study, but if she's going to continue living in human territory, she's going to need to learn how to express herself properly to humans. Just then, Christina comes in to pay a visit, and she asks how Selena's studying has been going so far. Selena says her head hurts, but she's able to read at a decent level now, so she's making good progress. Christina tells Selena that she's doing a good job, but Selena finds it much more impressive that Christina has the strength to run all the way to this mansion every day just to see them. However, today's a bit different because Goda and Olivia have come to see them as well. Once they get inside, the god apologizes for not coming to visit earlier, but he has been really busy dealing with all the trouble from the Karen incident. He also wants to apologize for getting Dallin and Celaena mixed up in his plan, but Celaena tells him he has nothing to be sorry about since it all worked out well in the end, especially since they were given antidotes ahead of time to make sure Karen's drug wouldn't be effective. There's also one other thing Gado wanted to mention, so he pulls out 2 pieces of paper and hands them to Celaena. The first piece of paper is a permit for her to stay in Galoa, and the second is her registration, so she can rest assured that there will be no further issues with her residency as of this moment. Celaena is elated to hear the good news, and if Gado had his way, he would have approved her from day one because he could immediately tell that she was a kind and gentle Lamia. Now that Celaena is officially a citizen of Galoa, Olivia tells Dallin that there's someone who wants to meet him, so the group heads over to the academy and meet with an old friend of Dallin's, Denzel. Denzel is the son of Maguru, and Celaena introduces herself to him, but he had already heard all about her from his mother and Olivia. Since they are here, he asks if they want to take a walk through town with him so he can show them around, and both Dallin and Celaena are more than happy to go with him. Denzel shows them the main street of the city where most of the people gather, and Celaena is amazed to see all the wonderful things the city has to offer, but when a young boy drops a fruit and she tries to return it, the boy's mother drags her son away in fear. Celaena may have official permission to live in the Galoa territory, but people are still very wary of Lamias, and she understands that it won't be easy to change that, so she just turns to Dallin and suggests they should buy some gifts for everyone back home before they return to Varen. Once they are done with shopping for the day, Dallin says goodbye to Denzel. Before he leaves, Denzel and Olivia extend an invitation for Dallin to join the academy. After Olivia saw Dallin's magic capabilities, she felt it would be a waste if he couldn't train to use it to the fullest, and she thinks the academy would be the perfect place for him to reach his full potential. She also got a glimpse of his soul, so she knows he's a reincarnated dragon, and if he wants to protect the village he has come to love, then it would be best if he expanded his knowledge for their sake. Dallin says he will think about their offer, and Celaena is a little saddened since this might mean he will be leaving her soon. On the ride back home, Christina asks Dallin if he is going to accept the offer to go to the Magic Academy, and he admits that it was certainly tempting, but he doesn't want to leave Varen behind. He asks Christina what she thinks, and she tells him that while she thinks Varen is a wonderful place, there is a limit to how much can be learned in such a small village, so Dallin starts thinking that it might be a good idea to go to the academy after all. While Dallin and the others head back to Varen, catastrophe has just struck out in the forest because another gate has just been opened, and hundreds of ant monsters are pouring out of it under the control of 4 mysterious figures. The first to encounter these monsters is an elf scout who happened to be in the area, but he stood no chance against them and was immediately killed. His partner heard the commotion and rushed over to his side to check on him, but by the time he arrived, his friend was already dead, and he became the next victim of the monsters. Sometime later, the rest of the elf scouts come to investigate the area, and the leader is horrified to find that his men have been completely massacred. Among the bodies, he finds one elf that is still alive, but he is barely breathing and won't last much longer in his current condition. The leader asks what did this to him, so just before the injured elf dies, he tells the leader that there was a horde of monsters here. Back in Varen, Christina and Dallin are helping with the swordsmanship lessons for some of the younger kids, and Christina is having fun watching Dallin train with the kids, but she can't help but feel upset when she thinks about the fact that he might leave the village to go to the academy someday. However, in the middle of her thoughts, she gets distracted when a bunch of kids start playing on her tail, so she starts chasing them around. Dallin is glad to see that Celaena is getting along so well with the kids, and he hopes things continue like this for a long time, but all of a sudden, Christina comes over to him and says she has a favor to ask. She tells him she wants to head out into the forest since she heard that there are a lot of vicious animals around here, and she wants to test her strength against them. Dallin says he knows his way around the forest, but isn't a place you should venture into for no reason. However, Christina counters and says she has a really good reason for going out there since Albert has been complaining about not having enough space for his pigs to graze, and he would be able to gather a lot of the corns for the pigs to eat if the monsters in the forest were dealt with. Her getting to fight is just a little bonus. Dallin can't argue with her logic, so he agrees to take Christina into the forest along with Albert, Celaena, and a couple of soldiers for extra protection. As they enter the forest, Celaena asks why the guards are wearing so much armor for such a short expedition, so Dallin explains that they are just being cautious since there have been a lot of powerful monsters seen in the area, so they don't want to get caught lacking out here. Although with Dallin, Celaena, and Christina here, there probably isn't much that could pose a threat to them. Once they reach a certain point in the forest, Albert's pigs begin grazing, so Balin walks off with the soldiers to scout out the area. While heading deeper into the forest, Balin tells his men to stay alert because you never know what could pop out at you, but one of the pigs wanders off into the bushes, so a guard runs after it without a second thought. However, he soon regrets the decision to split up from the group because he comes face to face with a massive bladed tiger, and it looks like it's ready for its second meal after the pig. The tiger was about to turn the soldier into minced meat, but at the last second, Balin manages to step in and stop it with his hammer. Once the threat has been dealt with, Balin begins yelling at the soldier for running off on his own and not paying attention to his surroundings. But as he says this, Balin also fails to pay attention to his surroundings, so he gets attacked by one of those ant monsters from earlier. Christina, Celaena, and Dallin all hear the sound of Balin getting attacked, so they rush over to make sure he is alright and find Balin on the ground with an ant monster in front of him. The ant monster tries to attack them as well, but before it does, Dallin hits it with an energy blast that temporarily knocks it out. Christina asks what kind of monster that is since she has never seen anything like it, but Dallin tells her the thing isn't actually a monster, it's a demon. It's only a low-ranked scout demon, but regardless, it is still incredibly powerful and agile, so they need to be careful if they want to defeat it. Dallin tells her he will keep it busy, and while he does, he wants Christina to land the killing blow. He makes the first move and fires another energy bolt at the demon, and while it's distracted, Christina charges forward and slashes it in half. Even though the demon has been defeated, Christina is left confused as to how something like that could have gotten here in the first place, but Dallin asks her to keep this a secret until they figure out more about what happened. Later that day, the group returns to the village and everyone nervously waits to hear the news about the condition of Balin and the other soldiers. According to the village chief, they were pretty badly hurt, but there's no immediate danger to their life, so they will be alright after they get the chance to recover a little. Dallin and Christina told everyone that Balin and the others were attacked by a bladed tiger and an unknown monster, and while no details were given about the second monster, the village chief knows this is terrible news for them. Balin is the strongest soldier Varaun has, so if he was defeated by the monster so easily, then hardly anyone would be able to handle it. A little while later, Magru comes into the town hall and tells everyone that Balin has regained consciousness, and he's going to be totally fine, but the wound he sustained from the mysterious monster was pretty severe. Something is clearly going on in that forest, so Dallin gets up and says he will investigate it, but Magru shuts him down and says he's not going anywhere. After what happened to Balin, she's worried Dallin might get himself killed, so she suggests they should all just make the forest a forbidden area and hope that the mysterious monster doesn't come near the village. Dallin understands why she would want to be so cautious, but he insists that if they don't investigate it now, they will be stuck living in fear forever. Magru relents and says she will allow Dallin to go investigate the forest, but only under the condition that he takes someone with him since it's dangerous to go out there alone. Celaena volunteers to go with Dallin, but the village chief absolutely forbids it since he would know what to tell the academy if Christina got herself hurt while she's under his care. Christina understands the village chief's concerns, but Dallin still needs someone to go with him, so Celaena offers to go instead. She possesses cursed eyes and can use magic, so she is sure she could be of great assistance to Dallin. Dallin has no objections, so he agrees to let Celaena join him. However, before they start thinking of plans, the village chief adds a condition to the mission and says the two of them should run away if their lives are ever in danger because their lives are the most important thing. Dallin and Celaena agree to his terms, so the next morning the two of them head out into the forest to investigate. It has been a while since Dallin and Celaena got to spend time alone together, and Celaena is starting to get flustered, but she is determined to prove that she can be useful to Dallin, so she's not going to let herself get distracted. As they are about to enter the forest, Dallin senses someone nearby, so he stops. But it turns out that it was just Christina. And since she wasn't allowed to join this expedition, she decided to go on a random walk in the forest for completing unrelated reasons. Dallin asks her why she came out here where she agreed to stay away from the forest like the village chief wanted, and Christina knows she made a promise, but she cares deeply for the village of Varaun, and if there is something threatening the village, she wants to be there to help protect the people she cares about. Celaena doesn't see much of a problem with letting Christina join them since she is a capable fighter, and Celaena can understand Christina's feelings when she says she wants to be helpful to the village. Besides, since she's here anyway, she might as well join their team. Christina thanks both of them for being so understanding, and together, the three begin slaying monsters as they make their way through the forest. After they've dealt with the spider monsters, Christina comes across another monster that looks very menacing, so she's about to attack, but Celaena stops her because this one is actually pretty calm. Celaena offers it some food, and Dallin seems to be getting along great with the monster's children as well, so since the monsters aren't a threat, Celaena sets up a picnic for all of them to share. Christina is amazed by how calm Celaena is even though there's a huge monster right next to them, but Celaena points out that she is also a monster, so she doesn't see much to be scared about. She encourages Christina to try feeding the babies so she can see that they are completely harmless, so Christina gives one of the babies an apple, and it begins happily munching on it. Christina now sees how cute monsters like these can be, and Selena explains that they were probably just out here looking for food, which means something must have driven them out of their usual feeding grounds. And if the situation is serious enough that even powerful monsters are being affected, it's even more reason for them to get down to the bottom of this. Christina takes a bite of the sandwich Dylan made for her, and she is shocked by how delicious it is, so Dylan explains that his mother baked the bread herself, and he was the one who cured the meat. Selena remarks that Christina looks so pretty even when she's eating, and Dylan admits that he thinks Christina has a certain level of charm no matter what she's doing. Christina gets embarrassed when he says this, and after learning that Dylan thinks Christina is charming, Selena asks Christina for some advice on how to become charming like her, since it might help her find a husband. Christina doesn't know what to say since she doesn't have some sort of secret charm technique, and Dylan tells Selena that even if Christina did have a secret charm technique, Selena wouldn't need it because she is fine the way she is. After he says this, Selena's mind starts racing because this must mean Dylan thinks she is charming, and if he thinks she is charming, that must mean he wants to make her his wife. However, while Selena is shaking in joy, they all hear some movement in the bushes, so they all go on high alert, but they are confused to find out that it's just a little fairy. The fairy warns them to run away because they are in imminent danger, and a moment later, some of those demons show up again. Christina and Dylan immediately jump into action and begin cutting down the demons, but there are a lot more of them compared to last time, so they have to split up to handle them all. While Christina is handling some of the demons in the front, Dylan defends the group's rear as a demon tries to flank them. However, while he was prepared to handle one, it turns out that there were actually two demons attacking at the same time, so after dealing with the first one, his sword gets stuck in its head, so he isn't able to get it back in time to cut down the second one. He had hoped he wouldn't have to do something like this since he likes his human body, but he is forced to partially unleash his dragon form in order to crush the second demon. After the demons are dead, he reverts his arm to normal, and says battles like this are a lot easier when he uses his dragon powers. While he was busy dealing with those demons, Christina is about to be overwhelmed, but at the last second, Selena uses her magic to take out the final demon. Once everyone has calmed down, they all go to check on the fairy to see if she's hurt. The fairy introduces herself as Merle and thanks the group for saving her from those demon soldiers. She says those demons suddenly started chasing her out of nowhere, and if that's what the demons have been doing in the forest, then that would explain why monsters have been chased out of their usual areas. But still, those demons are only scouts, which means a powerful demon is going to show up sooner or later, and when that happens, it could become a major disaster. Christina asks Merle if she can give them any useful information about the demons because they want to help her, and Merle appreciates the offer, but she's not supposed to talk to outsiders. Just then, Dylan senses a group closing in on them, but it doesn't feel the same as the demons. Christina has no idea where these people are, but she wants to draw her sword in order to be ready for a possible fight. However, before she does, Dylan stops her and says the people surrounding them aren't showing any signs of hostility, so he doesn't want to provoke them. He lays his weapon on the ground, so Christina does the same, and once the elves are confident that Dylan and the others are not an immediate threat to them, they show themselves, but they still don't trust the humans, so they order Merle to get away from Dylan. This was the end of episode 5. Subscribe to not miss the next part.